And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the African American Athlete. I'm Rickey Hampton, along with my friend and frat brother Mike Roberson, coming to you on a. This is a Wednesday edition of the African American Athlete. Uh, I hope everybody's doing well. We are over the hump, heading down the home stretch to another weekend of football, pro and college, and really, Mike. Right now, the biggest story in the sport of football, be it college, pro, junior pro, little league, pee wee football, is prime time Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes. I mean, it's really amazing uh, what's going on out there in Boulder, Mike.
Absolutely. And the funny thing about it is, like I've said, on previous shows, that I cover the Pac-12, and of course, this is going to be a lame duck season because that conference is going to dissolve because everybody's making a grand exodus, and Colorado themselves will be going to the Big 12, which they thought that one might fold, and then a couple of the other ones are going to the Big 10, and then the schools that I cover, Cal and Stanford, will be in the ACC, which is going to be so weird. So this right here is like basically like a meteor coming through space, and it's going to be one grand year for prime time in the Pac-12. And think about it. At first it was going to be a situation where 1/4 of the coaches in the Pac-12 was going to be black. But Herman Edwards got fired on the field, and then Shaw resigned at Stanford, and so instead of it having it, once again 1/4 of the coaches being black, it ended up being only prime time, and he's the biggest show of all. So it's just amazing how someone that some of us knew about in the mid '80s, but definitely after that draft in 1989, this guy was just electric. And one of his draft mates just got a statue in front of in Detroit. So yeah, so think about that draft: Troy Aikman, uh, uh, Barry, and Deion Sanders. We had
And Tony Manders.
oh yeah, Tony man. But yeah, we can't forget our late brother from Kansas City, the defensive end. Now his name escapes me, but he ended up
His
passing away.
father was in the Air Force.
Yeah,
Derek.
yeah,
Derek.
yeah. It'll pop in my head soon, but yeah, that was a really good draft. And like I said, and then of course, as I said, one of my good friends, my childhood friends that we've had on the show, Jerry Woods, was in that draft. So, and that was a draft I dreamed of being in. So that '89 draft, that's when we were introduced to Deion Primetime Sanders. And look what we got going on now, years
Derek
later.
Thomas.
Yeah,
Derek
Derek Thomas.
Thomas.
There you go. Yeah, Derek Thomas.
All
So yeah,
right.
so we were introduced to him, and of course, back then he had the Jerry curl, and I'm not one of these guys who get on people about that because I had it myself back then, and that's what it was. That's what it was all about. But yeah, that's what a lot of people got on him about that. But yeah, he was prime time then, and then of course, as an NFL player, electric in different places. Went to San Francisco, got a Super Bowl out here, the last one. And then, of course, he went to Dallas and got one there, and went to Baltimore, played well. But he's had some drawbacks too, though. It hasn't been all puppy dogs and seashells and whatever. But it's like he had the situation with his foot and his toes, and that could have stemmed back from either a baseball injury where he got turf toe or it was football related, and it messed up the circulation, and he ended up losing toes. So he's not in the best physical shape, but this right here has to be a very proud time for him to have your son is the quarterback of the team you're coaching, and he's a Heisman Trophy candidate.
Yeah,
Absolutely, got to be
yeah.
amazing.
Hey, and his other son made a huge play in that game.
Yep.
Uh, Shiloh.
Right.
I think I got that coming up. Yeah,
Right.
here's this play in the first half where they're struggling. Colorado State's driving. He steps right into it. and he's to the house just like his pop used to do. I don't think it's as fast as his pop,
right. And neither one of them could do his little Sanders shuffle either the right way. He even said that, "Come on, guys, you can't do that. You can try to emulate it, but it'll never be as good as when he does it."
And then you look at, I mean, who thought about Colorado football before this season? Nobody.
Right. Like I said in our last show, is that a lot of people don't remember when Slash was there. They were actually pretty good. I can't remember what conference they were in back then, and maybe the Big 12 or something like that. But they actually were. They were formidable, yeah. But then they end up winning. They actually won a national championship, kind of controversial, because they end up getting like 5 downs or something like that on one play at the goal line, and then they eventually scored. And that's once again when you had split national champions. I think even that might be the year that Miami probably should have been the 3rd champion. But yeah, Colorado got one around that time. Then Bobby Ross got one with Georgia Tech. So it was different teams, up for national championship back then. I mean, Washington got one back around that time. So it was a lot different. But once these playoffs kicked in, it's been primarily the SEC, except for Ohio State. And, of course, the ACC with Clemson. Yeah.
I thought we were going to be joined by, hopefully, Tony McLean of BASN Newsroom. Like he's having some trouble getting online. Yeah, but, man, you look at that game, that they were doing the little thing where all the celebs were there. Lil Wayne, Dr. Dre, Offset, The Rock, and Mike. I don't know if you got to read it before the show started. They are sold out for the rest of the season for the first time in the history of Colorado football.
And you know what's funny, and also,
and like you said, think about it, they've had some good teams there.
That's what I said. They had national championships sold out. Right, but that right there is a couple things that are proven with this, and then also I have to acknowledge Mark Jones, our excellent announcer that does everything, football, basketball, everything, and from Toronto, it's from the 6. And I actually met him a couple times. He's a cool guy. But he said that it looked like the BET Awards on the sideline. Now, some people could take that as, come on, man, you shouldn't be saying that. Then some could say, okay, I understand what you're trying to say. It's funny. Because there was a lot of music talent over there. But once again, you think about it like this. The people at Colorado and the guy that helped did the hiring, all this denial of black coaches over these years, and then you get one in Colorado, and you've gotten the greatest probably extravaganza ever in Colorado history with this black coach that some thought couldn't even coach, and think that he's all bravado and show and all that off the circumstance, but he's getting it done.
But and that's such a good point, Mike, because you look at his teams, they play sound football. They're disciplined. The team that wasn't disciplined in that game was Colorado State.
Right.
And it's just a lot, it's a lot of substance to Dion. And to that point, I want to play the controversial hit on Colorado's star receiver / cornerback and Heisman candidate Travis Hunter by Henry Blackburn of Colorado. I'm going to play the hit, then I'm going to play Dion's response to that.
Moment ago, downfield, incomplete, but a flag down intended for Hunter, who took a shot afterwards by Henry Blackburn.
Sanders coming to his
that's cool. So that quarterback coming in there and say, and they talk about their two best friends too.
As a former safety,
That's a very dumb play on the part of Henry Blackburn. I understand you may be
This
trying to
video
send
is
a message,
courtesy of the ESPN
right
broadcast.
there, the ball had already hit the ground.
The ball
You
was
see
hit the
number 11,
ground,
Well,
Mike.
and then hit the ball,
he's
and then
not
he had to
even
go
close to
around
catching
his
the
guy
ball.
to hit him.
He's already
That's
Good
when
point.
you know
and the
it's
play's basically
intentional.
over.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be
That's a
different if he
blatant
couldn't stop
penalty. That
himself.
just makes no
He
sense.
negotiated himself
That's dumb
around
football.
his own player to hit
I
him.
understand this is a rivalry and you're hyped up,
So
but
yeah,
you're
He
up.
went
You're
around.
and then of
touchdown. You
course
guys are playing
that
good
led
football.
to him getting death threats. You know, and
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
know people want to say, well, that's those crazy Colorado fans and it's all Deion's fault. But you also got to think, you know, his coach by starting up this whole hoopla about, you know, blah 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 blah, and then of course, what was it said to his players? You better hit those guys, and you probably want to hit that Hunter guy since he's on both sides of the field and he's on in every play. You know, he's going to be in about 100 plays. So hopefully it wasn't a bounty hunter situation.
Well, there was talk of that. Let's jump in. We got our guy, the great writer from BASN Newsroom, and our friend Anthony McLean. Tony, can you hear us? Tony's frozen. Yeah. Maybe he'll get out of that. I'm hoping maybe he can at least hear, so when he does jump in, he can hear this conversation.
Right.
But Mike, let's go to Deion's response to the news that Blackburn, who should have been ejected for that shot, I thought, but he shouldn't have to deal with some of the stuff that came after.
Right, because you know you get targeting and all that stuff. But go ahead.
You guys to record this and run with this. Henry Blackburn is a good player who played a phenomenal game. He made a tremendous hit on Travis on the sideline. You could call it dirty. You could call it he was just playing the game of football. But whatever it was, it does not constitute that he should be receiving death threats. This is still a young man trying to make it in life, a guy that's trying to live his dream and hopefully graduate with honors or degree, committed to excellence and go to the NFL. He does not deserve a death threat over a game. At the end of the day, this is a game. Someone must win, someone must lose. Everybody continues their life the next day. Very unfortunate.
I mean, Deion just took the high road with that, and he could have just sat back and like, you know what, we're gonna let this cat suffer. But that was a class act on a class response on Deion's part.
Which goes to contrast from what he did with Tim McCarver.
Oh yeah, I mean he has grown so much.
Exactly.
From, you know, the guy he was then to what he is now. He has the same brashness and all that, but there's a lot of substance. There's a lot of character with this guy. Because even Norvell, who I think was way out of line talking about when I talk to people, I take my glasses off. Jay Norvell, the coach at Colorado State, he kind of cracked when I take my sunglasses off and my cap off or something when I talk to people, and taking a shot at Deion and
his mother.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, the way he handled that whole thing. He said, man, I'm happy for this dude. I'm glad to see a brother out there doing something. And what he's doing, all those little things, plus their play on the field, they're 3-0, got a tough game this weekend, got to go to Oregon. But they were 1-11, 1-12 last year, Mike. So if they get 7 wins, they get 6 wins, you know they're going to get the very best bowl game a team could ever get because they're going to draw eyes.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing about it is that, you know, even if they end up being like 6-5 or something like that, you still want to see them somewhere on national TV because, you know, hey, it's all about making money. And this guy right here is golden right now. I think those glasses now made about $5 million.
That's crazy, man.
It's crazy, but You know, and this is when you say only in America. This is when you can say, okay, now things are what they should be, where a black man could have the ability to coach and then have the ability to show how popularity works in the black culture when it's cultivated right, when it's not stolen from. So when this guy right here has shown you that not only can I resurrect this team and make them very good on the field, but I can make this university probably the enrollment go up now. Okay, you probably will get more people of color now. There's people calling it Colorado now HBCU.
And I got Mark Jones. That I'm glad you brought that up. It looked like the BET Awards on the sideline.
Right, exactly.
Because Colorado has become Black America's team the way Georgetown was Black America's team.
But in football, it was Miami.
Yeah, back in the day.
It was Miami in the 80s with Luke and all those stars all hanging out down there, and you down in South Beach and all that. It was electric back then with Miami. Yeah. And remember, they were like desolate. Nobody knew about Miami. The big moment for them, 84, when Nebraska, a former great team, didn't go for the field goal, the safe national championship win. They tried to throw a pass. It got deflected. Howard Schnellenberger ended up becoming the coach of the national champion Hurricanes, and the whole facade of college football changed at that moment.
Yeah, and that is true, Mike. And I think we're joined by Tony again. Let's see if we can get Tony, man. We want to get you in on this, brother. Are you there?
God, I hope so. I had to pull out the tablet because the laptop apparently has got a mind of its own this evening.
Well, we are joined by the great Anthony McLean of the BASN Newsroom, one of America's great sports writers. And Tony, I'm so glad you could join us. Mike and I have been talking about the impact of Deion Sanders at Colorado, and we've delved into that. And one thing I was going to bring up, I'm going to bring this up, and then I want to get your thoughts on this whole matter, including what I'm about to bring up. It is, and I think Deion still got a lot of haters out there in college football, and I think one of the reasons is they are scared of this guy because he's going to come in there and be able to go in anybody's house and recruit that kid. And he's going to get a lot of them, fellas. You better get him now because he's going to get a lot of these guys. Your thoughts, Tony, on the whole Deion thing and what the future holds for him and if he decides to stay at Colorado and stay in coaching at a Power 5 program.
Well, people are for.
And thank you for joining.
No! I'm just glad it did. I'm sorry it took 1,000 years to get on because of whatever. But you got to remember, he's basically recreating his steps in Jackson. Jackson State, long time football power, fell on some hard times. You got to remember, he was like their 7th coach in the last 9-10 years, if I remember correctly. They've gone through coaches like underwear the last few years at Jackson State. And same thing with Colorado. Colorado, people forget Colorado won national championship, years ago. And they've been a national power, and they fell on some hard times. And the thing is, the biggest thing that Deion can do is the recruiting. And he's smart enough to bring in other football folks so that it doesn't all fall on him. I mean, he's done everything correctly. And the thing about it is that he has embraced all the nuances, the NIL, the portal, and everything else. And I think what scares folks the most about him is that um, there is no, to a certain extent, there really is no pretentiousness in that. And it's kind of hard to say that with a Dion, but if we're looking at just the coaching and all the other stuff that goes with it, he's done everything correctly, and in many ways, he's beaten folks. He's beaten them at their own game in the sense of, he's not really kissing anybody's butt. He basically walked in, gutted the team, and in a sense brought in a new, a whole new team. And of course, the college football intelligentsia being how they are, they immediately, jumped on him to whatever. It's forgive me. It's like a monster movie. If you don't allow us to mess with you, then we gotta mock you or kill you. And they figured if they mocked him to death, that whatever. But here's the thing. I believe he brought in. I think they're saying he brought in 57 or like maybe 67. I'm not sure of the exact number.
Maybe 60.
But a lot of them are 4-year guys. So it's basically, last chance you on steroids. But it's being played out in a Power 5 conference. And I think the fact that he identifies with them a little bit more in the sense of, because look, he's played, he's coached, and he's done the whole. I don't know how much the TV or whatever stuff helps, but I mean it's another factor. You can't deny that. But let's face it, half the thing here, especially with college sports, is recruiting.
Yeah.
And he has, I'm not going to say he's mastered it, but he sure as hell, gotten all the kinks out of it. I akin him to what Jimmy Johnson did when he became an NFL coach, in a sense where he learned the system, he went with his gut on a lot of things, and everything came up gold. Because in the sense of Jimmy Johnson, basically, that first year when they were 1-15, I believe they went through almost 100 players that year. He kept trying to get the right, get the right players, the right system. And basically by that third year, they were a championship team. Now with colleges, it's a little bit different, because even as bad as Colorado was last year, there were still some decent players on that team. But he was coming in with some good players, his sons and Trav Hunter, but also he basically has been, the real key to his theme music basically has been that portal.
Yeah,
and he has worked that portal. He's worked that portal like magic, and he's gotten guys that he recruited along the way as well. So it has been the perfect storm. And I know see, if you're Colorado, the best case scenario that they were hoping for, let's at least get to a bowl game. Well, now, depending on the litmus test is definitely going to be the next 2 weeks, because they basically go up against the two powers, Oregon and USC. And here's the thing. If they split those two games, he's already basically done what they thought he wouldn't do. They've won 3 games, and basically 2-3 more wins, he's bowl eligible. So all the money that has, he has not only made money for them at the box office, he's going to wind up bringing in more, because even if they don't play for the Big 12 championship, more than likely, let's just say they finish, say, 10-2. Let's say they lose these 2 games to Oregon and USC, but they win all the rest of their games. They're possibly playing on New Year's Day.
Oh, absolutely. Mike and I was just talking about that.
Yeah.
If they go 6-5, they're gonna get the best 6-5 bowl game in the history of 6-5 teams. Because
it's a moneymaker,
yeah,
and
absolutely. But
and and that's the thing.
Go ahead.
No, that's the thing. No, I'm just reiterating what you guys are saying. But see, the thing is also they're doing it on the field. It's one thing to have the flash and dash and everything else, but he's doing it on and off the field. I mean, I kid you not. 2 weeks ago, I'm going to the food store. I see a kid with a Colorado hat on.
Yeah.
I have never ever, and you'll see Duke and Michigan and all, but when I saw this kid with a Colorado hat, I was like, wow.
Mike and I were just talking about that before you came on. They are Black American team. Mark Jones, the announcer who called the game, said it looked like BET on the sidelines with all the celebrities and musicians there. But I want to go to this, Mike. When he came in, he said, when he got there, he said, Shador is my quarterback. And people were like, oh, no. I mean, this guy just played at Jackson State. But he has played his way into a first-round draft pick in 3 games.
And let's not forget the Heisman candidate.
Yeah.
And don't forget the son. Don't forget the other son too.
Well, yeah, Shiloh. Yeah, but here's the thing though. When you talk about maybe splitting these 2 games, the big game will be how he goes up against Caleb, the defending Heisman Trophy winner. Now, will Caleb be in the front runner to do what only has been done once, the back-to-back Heisman Trophy winner, or will he show out? So let's say they lose to Oregon, right? But he does well against USC and he outplays the Heisman Trophy winner. What kind of position is he in after that? So
absolutely,
because people thought that he was going to lay an egg in this game, but he ended up coming back once again in the second half and playing pretty well. And then, of course, the way they pulled it out in overtime, I mean, then to go for a 2-point conversion. So it was a lot of nuances going on in that game. I mean, the 2-point conversion put all the pressure in the world on Colorado State.
I mean, they are a well-coached, fundamentally sound football team. I mean, it is just so impressive what's happening there. But I do want to stick with football while we're there and talk about some of those just terrible injuries that took place in the NFL over the weekend, specifically Monday night with Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
And for the Cleveland Browns, Saquon Barkley went down. Here in Detroit, David Montgomery went down. I mean, we know this is a brutal game, but I know Mike and I have talked about it on this show before, Tony, and we may have had you on talking about the plight of the NFL running back today and how these guys are workhorses for their team, and they make great money for professional athletes, but they don't make the kind of money that they really deserve, considering how important they are to the success of the franchise.
Absolutely.
But then when you see stuff like this happen, you can't understand why they're making these moves.
Well, it was funny, and we definitely did. We talked about this when I was on here before, but I've been going over in my mind when exactly what was the Rosetta Stone moment here, and the more and more I think about it, I think it was the Herschel Walker trade. I think because if you remember, Minnesota, all the talk back then was Minnesota was a running back away from being a Super Bowl contender. And, Herschel was supposed to turn them into a Super Bowl winner. He turned the Cowboys into a Super Bowl winner. Unfortunately, some got lost in translation in Minnesota. But
Right.
gradually, it seemed as though right after that, and slowly but surely, you started to see the devaluation of the running back in professional football, and to a certain extent, I think that might have been sort of like the one of the key moments, because if when you really think about it, the only other player that was like in his, if you remember, not too long afterwards, Marcus Allen was let go by the Raiders. Now there was some other off the field things that had to
Bo
be
Jackson.
involved in that as
Bo
well,
Jackson,
that I think y'all know about. But
Yeah.
remember, he had a whole other career with Kansas City. But see, in their mind's eyes, he was done, and they basically took the Bill Cosby method of, I can get another one look just like you and do well.
What? But the one
But
thing
Mike,
you can say about that though is that trade produced who is now the all-time leading rusher.
Exactly.
Because Emmitt
Exactly.
Smith, that you're right about that. That was probably the beginning, the preamble of it. But then Emmett sojourned his way. But everybody else was like, it was starting to change, the whole dynamic. Because remember, especially like let's look at the Steelers. You got people criticizing Swan and Stallworth for not really having great stats. That's because Pittsburgh's a running team. It was all about Franco. Franco was the MVP Super Bowl 10, Super Bowl 9. Super Bowl 10, it was Swan. But it was like that, and it was more of a running game. So the receivers weren't getting those big stats, and some of the quarterbacks didn't have big stats. That's why people laugh at when they say, well, Bradshaw's 4-0. Why aren't you guys giving him credit against Brady, or Montana's undefeated, But they didn't have that style because it was all about the running back. And the running back
Yeah.
the big money
And I give the Steelers credit, because if you remember, that's during that stretch when they won 4 in 6 years, that was during the time when the passing rules got changed in 1980. And to their credit, even with Rocky and Franco back there, they bumped up their game with Swan, with Stallworth, with T. Bell, with
Benny Cunningham.
Randall, Benny Cunningham, a bunch of guys. Now, to their credit, they always had, even in those early, even if you go with that 72 team, you had guys like Roy Jefferson and Ron Shanklin, Frank Lewis. So they've always had good receivers, but it's just
Richie
that
Fuqua, can't forget him.
Reggie Fuqua, he would catch about 40, 60 balls out of the backfield as well. But again, to go back to what Mike said, it just shows you how much the game has changed over the years, where, back in the day, you wouldn't be caught dead without a running back. It's sort of like centers in the NBA back in the 70s. You wouldn't, if you did not have a big man in the middle, you weren't going anywhere. But see, now it's a guard, it's a guards league now. You can get away with a Draymond Green at center, a Giannis at center. When Shaq used to always say, when he retired, he was the last of the Mohegans, in a sense, where he was the last, dominant center that was drafted, that came into the league. And to a certain extent, he's right, because unfortunately, we had guys like Greg Oden, who unfortunately had Bill Walton's knees, unfortunately, and we never got a chance to see him at his best. So yeah, it's all the leagues are copycat leagues, but I think the NFL is the ultimate copycat league.
Now, when I think about the plight of the running back, I go to 2017 and Le'Veon Bell in Pittsburgh.
That's a good
He wouldn't sign.
Yeah,
He wouldn't
yeah,
sign
yeah,
franchise
yeah.
tag. He ends up sitting out, and the Steelers do what the Steelers do. They found somebody else. I think I don't know. And they might have had Benny Snell.
Well, they drafted. They had Connor back there, who's now with with the Cardinals, and then they went out, and then I think I went out and drafted Harris. I think a few years afterwards. Because see that, remember, for many years, Steelers were getting by with guys like Walter Abercrombie and Barry Foster, Bam Morris. They took the whole Bill Cosby thing to us to an incredible level, but they maintained that winning edge, though. That was the thing.
And he ends up sitting out the entire 2018 season.
And was never the same afterwards. Yeah.
Never the same.
Well, but once again, those are the ways you can look at it a couple ways. It's like, okay, do you sit there and just keep taking this? Well, we're going to franchise you because we don't want to pay you above market price, and we're going to dictate how much you get. Or is it finally going to be somebody says, look, we got to stop allowing you guys to devalue us like this. And it's basically, and the last guy you really paid was the anomaly of the running backs. If you talking about the guy. Yeah, I mean, but think about it. So basically, you look at how the demographics are at these positions and which one still gets paid the most. It's the quarterback.
Yeah, but even with McCaffrey, Carolina traded him because they weren't going to pay him. They just really aren't paying these guys. He got his when he got to San Francisco, which he was back home out that way, back to where he went to college. Hey, let's move on before we leave football. Tony, Mike, and I talked about this. Your thoughts? When the season started 2 weeks ago, we had 16 African American quarterbacks behind center in the National Football League. I mean, what a remarkable statistic considering where we've come from.
When we started doing the field generals about 4 or 5 years, a little over 4 years ago, we had 12 on opening day. And, the numbers have gone up. But see, think about this. Since that time, just in 4 years, we've had two brothers get to the Super Bowl to play against each other. We've had 3 of the first 4 picks be black quarterbacks. Now, you got a Heisman Trophy winner, black quarterback. And there's other guys, brother out in Washington State, Pennick, brother out in you got the kid out in Boston College, even though they're there. But see, the thing is, to steal a Dion line, they're coming. Right. They're coming. It's just a matter of them being given an opportunity. And the interesting thing. And it's funny because I was just finishing up because I fell behind. I'm actually doing a review of week 1. Think of the diversiveness of these fellas. You got a guy like Josh Dobbs who's been waiting for an opportunity. He finally gets it in Arizona. Unfortunately, it took Kyler Murray to get hurt. You got sort of a journeyman guy like Desmond Connor down in Atlanta. And now you got your standard, you got your standard veterans, the Mahomes, the Wilsons, and everything, and then you've got rising. I mean, just it looks like on the surface of the 3 kids coming in, this kid Richardson may wind up being the one that may have the most the most quickest impact. I know you guys had the concussion last week, but the thing about it is you've seen with the 3 guys coming in, and even with guys like Geno Smith, who finally was given an opportunity. At the end of the day, it's about being given an opportunity more than anything else. Because what's so funny to me is no one in New York will say that Zach Wilson's a bust. They'll keep giving him. He'll keep getting more chances and getting more chances and getting more chances. Meanwhile, you'll have Chris Collinsworth come on and say, well, this is the year where Patrick Mahomes really has to prove himself. So basically, those 2 Super Bowl wins, those 2 MVPs don't count. It's this year that really count. So
Yeah.
it becomes bothersome that the attitude, you're never going to, unfortunately, you're never going to change the attitude. But what I see is that teams want to win. And if you're dedicated to wanting to win, you'll work with a guy,
Okay.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mike, will the day come where a white quarterback will be like a white running back?
But you know what? And see, and that's funny about that, because that's what I was just gonna say to you guys. I'm gonna say, before we pat ourselves on the back and say, hey, we got equality now, it's still not the commensurate ratio for the league. I mean, if the league
Absolutely.
is 61% black, that was only 50%, and we got guys with short leashes, and I hate to use leashes, but short opportunities. They're waiting for Russell to get benched. All right. And of course, we know what's going on in Chicago. That's going to be a disaster.
God.
They wanted to bench him sooner. So you think about it. By the time we get to midseason, that number is going to probably go from 16 down to 10. Okay. And with either attrition, injuries, or, the coach decided to make a change, and then I can't believe how much latitude we're giving Sean Payton. He's sitting here basically disrespecting a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Should have been the first to have back-to-back, the first black quarterback to have back-to-back. And he's basically getting disrespected on the media, on the air, about his starting quarterback. Basically saying that he needs to stop kissing babies. He needs to get it together, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, whenever we've seen this, I mean, let's talk when they try to say, well, I can't believe Belichick hollers at Brady sometimes, but he never said anything like this about him on, in a press conference or things like that. And the media wouldn't allow that. The media would go off on Belichick if he disrespected Tom Brady, because they have their favorites. But for some reason, Russell's fallen into this punching bag now. It's amazing to see that.
I think Peyton has gotten full of himself, man. He won a Super Bowl, was on TV for a few minutes.
Exactly.
Well, he thinks he just.
And think about this. And I know there's always luck involved, but think about this. He has one Super Bowl, but they act like he's Chuck Noll. Okay. And here's the thing. If the Minnesota Vikings don't have 12 men in the huddle, he doesn't have a Super Bowl. And that's the key play, because they were about to kick the game-winning field goal and go to the Super Bowl. Brett Favre's going to go to his third Super Bowl, and they had 12 men in the huddle. Now you go back 5 yards. You're out of field goal range. Then right on cue, Brett Favre throws an interception. That's how close they were to not going to the Super Bowl. And then they win, and that's our frat brother, but Caldwell's the coach, not Tony Dungy. They did the onside kick. Hank Basket couldn't recover it, even though he has this popular wife that's on, was a Playboy bunny. And then Peyton had some bizarre play where he turned the ball over and was a pick six or something. So it was just a lot of bizarre things that happened for them to win. But he's been having this cachet ever since then, because before it was like, you guys have great regular seasons, but you don't do anything in the playoffs. But now it's like he's a made man now. You can sit there and disrespect Russell Wilson like
you know what?
You're the man. Yeah,
that's a good term, man.
It is.
That he's he is a made man. Yeah, go ahead.
And remember, Bountygate was under his watch.
There you go.
Everybody seems to forget. Everybody seems to forget that too.
Yeah. But see, now, as far as the coaches, man, I have no problem if you're a black coach, you're not doing a good job. I mean, you got to go too. I just want you to have. We should have just like everybody else.
See, Ricky, guys, that's the thing. It's about being given an opportunity. It's funny because, I'm a YouTube guy. For some reason, whatever, I was watching the 1980 Raiders America's game thing. That's the year where, Plunkett, took over after Dan Pastorini broke his leg. And now remember how long he had been in the league when he got the Lester Hayes years and everything. But think about how many chances Jim Plunkett was given before he got his shot. If Jim, dare I say it, if he was Tyrone Plunkett, he probably would not have gotten the same sort of opportunity. And see, that's my thing, is that you've got young guys like Josh Dobbs, who's on his fourth team and finally getting a shot. And then you had Geno Smith, who it was getting, again, it's all about opportunity. Huh?
Wouldn't the Jets love to have Geno now?
Hey, if I was 20 pounds lighter, they would probably want to put me on the center at this point. But it's all about opportunity. I mean, Mike Tomlin is basically the third part of the Triple Crown for the Steelers, and this guy's been fired by the media and fans at least 876 times during his whole tenure in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. No doubt about that.
That is true. And the thing about it is that, to have that type of longevity, and like you said, be the third ring of that with Chuck Noll, of course. And then, of course, we know that the coach before him gets all kind of credit, and he has the same many Super Bowls as
Peyton,
as Tomlin. But, it's
Bill
like,
Cowher.
Yeah.
It's
no Bill Cowher. I'm like, really? And then, you think
never
about it.
loses on Sunday. He's on TV. He never loses.
Well, there you go. But what I'm saying is that, and then again, the other Steeler seems to diss Tomlin every week. He can, Bradshaw.
Yeah.
He's a rah-rah guy. He's not really a good coach. So that's, of course, code words right there. But what I'm saying is that, think about it. Tomlin probably should have had two, but remember, that was the miracle year of the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. Remember, they were about to be eliminated from the playoffs, but the Bears found some kind of way to blow that game. Then they play them again later in the playoffs, and that's when Cutler's on the sideline on the bike with a knee injury. And that's how they backed into the Super Bowl. And then you get there, you think, the Steelers should wipe them out. And I don't know what happened, but the Packers didn't look like a team that barely squeaked into the playoffs. They beat the Steelers, and that was, of course, he got criticized for that. Like, well, you shouldn't have lost to those guys. And that's Aaron Rodgers' only Super Bowl, which he gets to hang his hat on for the rest of his career. How long that, we don't know if it's over now or if he's going to come back from this potential.
I'm torn, because what's worse, having him out there on the field or having him doing more ridiculous State Farm commercials? So it's we're gonna get screwed either way.
Well, remember some of those commercials they took away because of his stance on the vaccine deal.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. He and Dr. Sebi are like this.
Yeah.
And I think we've had this conversation before too. Every year we have this conversation about the HBCUs going to play some of these money games. I think somebody got beat 71-3. Just some outrageous scores. But I sent you guys a little story I saw the other day about HBCUs being owed just enormous amounts of money from state schools. I know Tennessee State, Mike's alma mater, is owed $500 million. And if these schools could get some of that money, and yes, as alumni, we need to send more too. But
right.
Damn, the state owes them that money.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the difference is,
I hate seeing Grambling got beat 72-10. That program has too much history,
right,
to go out there and it's almost like they put on a show. They bring the band so the band can perform, and I just hate seeing that, guys.
I I don't know.
And I know you covered.
I was at Notre Dame for that game.
Right.
We played, And the thing about it is that TSU was very competitive. I know it's the first quarter. They are very competitive, and there was a play where they made the Notre Dame fumble, and they had a chance to take the lead, which would have been absolutely momentous. And instead, they got stymied and then tried to kick a field goal, and that was blocked. And that right there, everything, then the floodgates.
Snowball effect, yeah.
And that's when they got blown out. So that was opportunities lost, but that lets you know what slim margin you have in those games. And if you don't
and that's the thing, once you start going to the bench, I mean, it's over.
Exactly.
The talent there. Texas State 77, Jackson State 34. I mean, you know, I know Jackson State is down a little bit,
right?
But some of these scores.
But Texas State, when have we even heard of them doing anything?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm saying.
But that lets you know that there's levels to this. Like one of our shirts, there's levels to this. And like I said, when you're on that D1, remember it was 1A, 1AA, there was a seismic difference between that. But as Prime has said, it's basically the line. The defensive and offensive line, those guys are enormous on the upper echelon. So that's where you're going to get beat in the trenches. You could get the quality players or the specialty players, the wide receivers and all them that can play on either level, you know, and maybe even some running backs, even though that's been so devalued now. But definitely where you're going to see us excel is going to be those specialty positions, like either cornerback or wide receiver or something like that, because our last big star who was on our show, DRC, you see, he had a pretty good NFL career. So,
absolutely.
You know, before that, it was the linemen. It was Tall Jones. It was Richard Dent, Mike Hagman, Claude Humphreys. It was all about the defense with TSU, and of course, you got Gilliam Jefferson 747. But
you can always find some good individuals. They
exactly
from everywhere. But you know, when they had teams that could compete with them, they wanted no parts of it. Tennessee State would have whooped Vanderbilt all over the place.
Yeah.
Almost beat them a few years ago with Rod Reed's team. In fact,
that's true.
Should have beat them. But you know, when you see that, Tony, how these schools are clearly it's a lack of respect for HBCU schools. And clearly, in my mind, Tony, it is that is planned by the respective states to avoid sending that money to the proper places that is earmarked for.
Yeah. It's like, you know, they literally, you know, steal them from the drive-through on them all the time. The one thing to me, I would like to see a lot more of these schools really, you know, realize how athletics and academics can work hand in hand. You know, there's only a handful of these HBCUs that actually recognize the fact that their athletics helps bring in that extra cachet. And you know, let's use Deion's time at Jackson State. You know, I don't want to be too long-winded, but when Deion got hired, the one thing that gnawed at me was, I wonder, you know, was it Jackson State that went after him, or was it him that went after Jackson State? How the way things played out on his way out the door, it made me think that it was more Jackson State going after Deion, only because of the way they sort of kicked him down on the way out the door, and they basically were saying, well, he just used us as a stepping stone and all the other stuff. And yes, we've seen that over the years. But here's the thing. You know, a lot of these HBCUs pride themselves on being sort of the Black Duke or the Black Stanford or the Black Northwestern, what have you. But see, here's the thing. All three of those schools that I mentioned have no problem mixing athletics with academics, because they know that those 30-second commercials that you see on there, exactly, Rick, They recognize that there is still I hate to say it like this, but it has to be said. There's still a Chitlin Circuit mentality with some of these HBCUs where they don't recognize the fact that athletics and academics can go hand in hand. Now, I'm not saying that in certain instances they're going to be able to bring in the kind of money that's owed to them by the state, but if you have a successful athletic program, whether it be basketball, whether it be football, whether it be tennis or what have you, that goes hand in hand. There's a reason why that kid here is wearing a Colorado shirt. There's a reason why guys up the block your way are wearing schools outside of their whatever. It's because recognition, and they've seen them on TV and they recognize their sports. Who the hell ever heard of Georgetown before John Thompson? Let's be fair. Let's be really fair about this. Who the hell heard of Texas? Who the hell heard of Texas Western / Texas El Paso before that team beat Kentucky?
Yeah, Mike mentioned Miami back in the day.
Exactly. See, what I love about what TSU is doing, I love the fact that they're talking about that they're going to put together this hockey program.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're probably going to be awful those early years, but the fact that they have they have the foresight to say, you know what, we need to get in there and just see what we can do, and not just get caught up in the whole, well, we're just a basketball school, we're just a football school. There's only a handful of HBCUs that recognize the fact that athletics and academics work hand in hand. And until they recognize that they should be partners instead of adversaries, maybe we'll stop. I don't know if we'll ever stop the money games, but maybe, my thing has always been with the tradition and the history, let's just play each other. And I know we have that with the classics, but you know what? Let's just have more of them.
Yeah. And a good example of the athlete, Mike Roberson, right now, you go on the SIAC website, you can't get a result from a game. Well, actually, they have put some results from games, but for 2 weeks, you didn't know if Fort Valley won or lost. I mean,
Yeah.
That's the SIAC website, Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference website. I mean, that's just who's the commissioner? Who's the SID for the conference?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing also where it's almost like a situation where, okay, we were really diligent about that in Black Press and all the other entities when we had no other option. We couldn't go to the mainstream media. And now when some people have the opportunity, it seems like now, well, we're not going to write about that. We need to write about what the mainstream media is talking about, when we still need to emphasize what's going on in our backyard to keep that. That's why I was so disappointed with BET when they stopped doing the football games, because that was, for me, I mean, that might have encouraged me to go to Tennessee State, because
absolutely.
I saw that. I mean, when I was a kid, I was like, man, I want to be 6'5". I want to go to UCLA. I want to break Kareem's records and all that. Yeah, I was going that. But then as I got older, and I said, okay, well, maybe I'll narrow it down to the Big Ten schools because I'm living here. Then I said, you know what? I want to go to HBCU, but I want to go to HBCU that's also, has other things going on, because I don't want to be like at Grambling where I'm like out in the sticks somewhere and that's it. That's why I said Nashville, it's a major city, even though Nashville was a whole lot different than it is now. Yeah. It's really a metropolis now, but back then it was more like hee-haw on steroids. But no diss, Ricky.
Oh, town, man. but right. It was sleepy little town.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike Junior Samples is dead. He can't hear you, so go ahead.
Okay. But I knew that Fisk was gonna be down the street, Meharry's down the street, so I can get away from the campus and go there. And then if I really want to get away from campus, I'll go over to Vanderbilt like I used to do. And then you got David Lipscomb, you had Belmont. So it was like I got options. I can, if I need to get away from this, hustle and bustle over on the campus, I can go places. I didn't want to be in some little small town and that's it. So that's why, but I still had the essence of being in a, mid-sized city, but then also being at a historically great HBCU with some of the best alumni ever. I can have arguments with anybody of any ilk about, hey, well, we have this person. So don't think that we just got some little humbug school where nobody came out of here. We had some of the most elite people ever to come from our school.
Yeah. Hey guys, we got to get out of here, but I do want, Mike, I want you to give our viewers an update on the WNBA playoff. And Tony, can you give us a quick breakdown of what do you think Major League Baseball is heading into the postseason? And as we watch Acuna in Atlanta, this must be what it was like watching Willie Mays in his prime. I mean, just some of the stuff he is doing, and not even Willie Mays. I even went and looked it up. I mean, Willie never went 40-40. Willie stole a lot of bases, and then he apparently just quit running because
yeah.
No doubt that probably wasn't even a thing back then. No doubt he could have got 40-40 if he'd have wanted it. But anyway, I want you to break that down for us, Mike. Quickly on the NBA playoffs, is Vegas going to repeat?
Well, that's what it's looking like, but you got New York that's looking pretty good now with Stewie. Stewie goes over to New York. Breanna Stewart, if you guys don't know, and Breanna is one of the winningest players ever. Connecticut has had some winners, but she won 4 straight, and she was an outstanding player. So she's probably be considered maybe the greatest player to ever play at UConn, which is a huge thing. But she's in New York now, and
she got
almost lost. They almost lost. They were up 1-0, but they almost lost. But they came back on some heroic plays and won that one. So they've advanced to the semis. And let me see. Vegas beat Chicago. So Vegas is on the semis. I didn't see the other half of the bracket yet. That might have been played today or something. But Vegas still is the favorite, and they will be probably the first team to repeat, probably maybe since the Minnesota Lynx, because people forget that the original dynasty was the Houston Comets. And they're now defunct. And then I gotta acknowledge the Dallas Wings too. Dallas Wings are doing pretty well, and they have my homegirl Arike, that was the superstar at Notre Dame that was hitting all those shots. So she's now got a chance to do something in the WNBA. So Dallas may be up there, against. I think they do play Vegas, and so it's still some excitement going on. But the Dallas Wings now used to be the Detroit Shock, another dynasty. So that's the one drawback of the WNBA, that those dynasties don't last because these teams that haven't really stayed in place. Even with Vegas, I think used to be San Antonio.
San Antonio, yeah.
Yeah. So that, and then they're talking about expanding. They're talking about expanding new teams. And people are surprised that the Bay Area doesn't have a team. And there used to be a team up in Sacramento, but the Bay Area doesn't have a team.
For the life of me, I do not know why they don't put a team in Knoxville and just put a bunch of Tennessee Vols on there. I don't understand. To me,
that's what it was.
I don't know why they don't do that.
That's what I thought they did with the Connecticut Sun. Yeah, I got you.
Yes, I mean it just makes sense. It just they'll play and basically play at the gym.
Hey Tony, explain to me how the Baltimore Orioles became so good, and the Braves, out of all those great Braves teams that always win the division, is this the best Braves team you've seen?
It's on the verge. Because they have a balance to them that I just hope for their sake they haven't peaked. It's literally theirs to lose. But basically with both Baltimore and Atlanta, the farm system. They with Baltimore, it was sort of similar to what the Cubs and the Astros did. They had all those years where they were just god awful, but they built up draft picks and they built up the farm system. And the thing, and here's the crazy thing about the Orioles: their better players still haven't been called up yet. That's the scary part about the Orioles, barring injuries and free agency or what have you. The Orioles and the Braves are not going anywhere. These are going to be perennial. These are going to be perennial powers. Matter of fact, it wouldn't surprise me a bit if that's your World Series this year, Atlanta and Baltimore, because to me, I know everybody. I don't take anything away from Houston. I think you have to, because of Dusty and what have you, but there's something, there's something about this Baltimore team with the pitching and the balance, and they have a real great balanced lineup. That's the thing to me that really, because I told a buddy of mine earlier in the year, y'all going to win the East this year, right? He said, get out of here. Toronto's overrated. The Yankees are in the 12th year of their 5-year rebuilding plan. The Red Sox, let go Bogarts and Mookie Betts and wonder why they don't win.
Right.
And then the rest of the league, it's basically whoever wins the Central basically is going to get fed to whoever has the best record, and they'll probably get swept in 2 games. It's a shame, but that I think let's put it this way: 7-game series. I like Baltimore's chances against Houston.
Well, let me just throw this in here though, and of course I'm a little biased being from there. Despite all the relocation rumors and sale and all that, look at that team in Milwaukee that's like sneaking up there, and I don't know how they're doing it. They were out here earlier in the year. I didn't know how good they were.
If they would just spend a couple of bucks, I think they would be. Because see, to me, what is the real difference between Atlanta and Milwaukee? They're both. I wouldn't consider them major media markets, but they've developed their farm system. The only difference is the Braves are willing to spend a couple of bucks. Milwaukee isn't, because there, for the grace of God, Milwaukee could be just like Atlanta. But the end of the day, you still have to spend. You got to build it up, but you still have to spend a couple of bucks. That's what. Now there's the other extreme, of course, with Daddy Cohen down in Flushing. But even they're smart enough now to realize they got to build the farm system, and now they're slowly trying to build something.
And look at the irony. The last time the Milwaukee won, they were the Braves.
There you go.
Mike,
there you go.
Are the A's leaving for good now? Is that official yet?
It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the sad thing is, and I don't know, the A's window to stay was when the Raiders left. Because they had the park all to themselves. They should have literally said, "We are not going to play in this dump unless you give us a new stadium." And the city council has been playing footsies with them think about it. Since the A's second dynasty in the late 80s, early 90s, the Raiders have left, come back, and left again.
Yeah.
And what's the one constant? The A's are still playing in that dump.
But they had a movie called Moneyball, Anthony.
Yeah, and how's that working for him?
That's what I say.
Exactly. Moneyball was good. Moneyball is good enough to get you beaten the division series.
And then you get rid of all your star players.
Exactly. Look, it's crazy, man.
Look, I'm saying, Ricky, the only team that got away with that, I don't know how they do it, but Florida's won twice and just gutted their whole team. And I don't know how they do it. There's no fans there.
Yeah.
It's horrible, but they got two
They've
World
got-
Series championships.
They've got some Joe Hardy thing going on down there, man. I don't know what that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Hey Tony, tell our viewers about BASN.
We're www.basnnewsroom.com. I'm actually finishing up a review of week 1 from the Field Generals, and we'll catch up to week 2 before this weekend. And also, Gary Norris Gray is actually doing a Dion feature that's going to come out this weekend. The original Buffaloes, called the original Buffalo Soldier.
I like that. Hey, we're out of here, Mike.
Right. Well, let me just throw in my little plug. I'm
Yes,
working
sir.
on a column about Coco Golf, so that should be out.
Yes.
So I'm gonna write about
Yes.
Coco, and maybe it'll be out the weekend. And then I got other games I'm covering throughout the week. I got Stanford football over the weekend, so they do play at Colorado, but I won't be there. So we'll see how the Dion effect on that. But unfortunately, they're not coming to the Bay, and then of course now the conference is dissolved, so I won't get to see the Colorado experience.
Wow, what? I know you guys got to go, but Mike, what the hell happened with that conference?
Well, you know what? From what I
guess
heard,
what didn't happen. I guess what didn't happen. I guess more so.
Yeah. From what I heard is that when the Texas teams wanted to leave and go to the SEC,
Yeah.
they said the Pac-12 commissioner didn't really want to try to get them there, which would have really bolstered the Pac-12, right? But they said that they messed up on that opportunity, and then the TV package didn't really work well. The Pac-12 network didn't really work well, and the Big Ten network seemed to be the one making the most money along with the SEC. And so then after a while, it was like, hey, man, we're on a sinking ship here. And now the conference is pretty much gone, and it's a lot of history. It's the Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12, and now it's
I never thought I'd live to see the day where the Big East and the Pac-12 would be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is coming to a head. You can't go too much further with this. So, hey, but we're gonna get out of here. Tony, man, always a pleasure, brother. We really love to hear your insights.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it.
My frat brother, Michael Roberson. We'll see you next time. You've been watching The African American Athlete. I'm Rick Hampton. Peace, everybody.
Peace.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, Tony.
Yep.